Yeah, sure.
Cool. Great to have you with us. How are you?
Fine, thanks. It's very nice party mood here.
Yes, it is. You need to have the good vibe to implement PropTech or not.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. So where are you at right now?
In Bulgaria.
Very nice, very nice.
Yes.
Do you have a presentation that you would like to share with us?
Yeah, sure. Yeah. Just a
Yeah.
minute, I will start it.
So it's about old trends, new trends, how to know which to take seriously. I think that's very amazing.
Yeah, I will really uh, hope that it will be very interesting to you.
Well,
I
will
suppose
be.
that now you see my screen and everything is okay.
Yes, looks great. So I would like to give you the floor and I will be back when you're finished.
Okay, thank you very much, Lotta. Um, so this topic came to my mind as a result of the current changes that we all experience in our environment as a result of the turbulent economic changes that affect construction and real estate as well. And I just recalled the situation we had in 2020 with the COVID issue. And the same questions that we encounter today, we encountered also in 2020. That's why I decided to compare the trends that were outlined for the real estate in 2020 and to see which of them came to reality and which were just a false prophecy. And why I will try to provoke your thinking why these prophecies didn't come true. This is just one of the articles with a lot of trends that I reviewed in 2020 by McKinsey. Commercial real estate must do more than merely adapt to coronavirus. It was issued in April 2020, and I will share with you some of the trends it outlined as most probable to stay for a long time with us, not just for the situation with the coronavirus. Okay, let's go and see some of the trends they outlined in 2020. One of them concerns the senior living. It is possible that demand for senior living assets could dampen, or the product could change altogether to meet new preferences for more physical space and more intensive operational requirements. It's also possible that senior living facilities could prove they are best able to handle viral outbreaks, accelerating demand. We also saw that senior living facilities proved to be just the opposite. We had the hype in death cases, namely at senior living facilities. Exactly the opposite of what this article asserts. Consumer forced to shop online. This concerns retail. Because of closed malls and shopping centers may permanently adjust their buying habits for certain categories toward e-commerce. Before the pandemic, consumers were already shifting their spending away from physical stores. It prophesies for the permanently adjustment of buying habits to e-commerce. And there were many articles that expected that the end of the physical store is very close. And following COVID-19, we will not any longer have physical stores. As we see, this is not the case. We all do have an increase in the omnichannel e-commerce and trading, but definitely it is not completely done with the physical stores. Okay, next is even a short COVID-19 experience could also permanently change habits that may affect demand for other real estate assets, such as hospitality properties and short-term leases. Even a short moratorium on business travel could have lasting impact when alternatives such as video conferences prove sufficient or even preferable. We see that the online conferences were in their hype during 2020, 2021, but ever since the measures were eased and the physical conferences were back, people really enjoyed the physical conferences because they enjoy the communication with each other that is presupposed with physical events. So this also doesn't turn true, though we have these very easy opportunities to join online events, and we can join them very quickly without any additional expenses for traveling and additional time spending more time to travel. However, people do prefer physical events. Next, the shift to e-commerce may also further boost already high demands for industrial space. This is one of their predictions, which turned true. And we will see next in the presentation the stats that prove that this prediction is true. Economics says demand density goes up when more people work from home, while other asset classes such as co-living may suffer. It is true that during 2020-2021, co-living was not there was not such demand for co-living, but since co-living solves at least temporarily for some time for some age groups the issue with the shortage of residential affordable living units, co-living will not just go away, because the profound issue of having affordable residential units is not solved. So till this major issue and problem in some Western European countries is not solved, co-living will continue to thrive. Next, about the universities and university forced to educate remotely for entire semesters could convince students and other stakeholders that the existing tools are sufficient to provide a high quality education at a lower cost, and a new type of hybrid online-offline education could become even more widely embraced. In the cases that I am aware of such programs, hybrid being inserted and practiced at universities, considerable number, not to say all people, agree that this is a complete disaster when it comes to university studies. You just cannot study medicine online. Or even IT technologies online. It is impossible. So this prediction also didn't come to be true. And the last one I will mention, though the article has many such predictions, and as I mentioned, there are many other articles with such predictions. So the depth and breadth of economic impact on the real estate sector is uncertain, just as the scale of human catastrophe from the pandemic is yet to be seen. However, behavioral changes that will lead to significant space becoming obsolete in a post-coronavirus environment seem imminent. So we see that definitely neither residential nor office space is obsolete in a post-coronavirus environment. In many countries, we observe huge spike in demand for office spaces. Only the anticipation and the expectation of tenants have changed, and they would like to have certain improvements of this office environment, but there's huge spike in demand for office space post coronavirus. So why such predictions didn't come to fruition and didn't come true? I would like to cite a strategist, Richard Rumelt. He has a really wonderful book. I will show it to you in a few seconds. But what he has to say, and by the way, what he says here is set not for the coronavirus crisis. It is set on occasion of the financial crisis in 2008-2009. So even the previous one, the 14 years ago. So what he has to say: during hard times, a structural break in the economy is an opportunity in disguise. To survive and eventually to flourish, companies must learn to exploit it. And he says there's nothing like a crisis to clarify the mind. In suddenly volatile and different times, you must have a strategy. Next, he goes on and says that for many managers, the word strategy has become a verbal tick. And even when they just decrease their prices, they talk about price decreasing strategy. This is not strategy at all. And by strategy, I mean a cohesive response to a challenge. And this cohesive response to a challenge is very typical for a company. Nobody else can do the diagnosing of the situation, how you see the situation through your eyes, and the decisions that you take in order to cope with the challenges of this situation. So this is not easy to be copied by any competitor. Definitely, while, for example, when cutting prices, it's very easy for your competitor also to cut the prices with the same percentage or anything else that the majority of people call strategy. Strategy in reality is something which is much more complex and much more typical for the company. Why do I pay such attention to strategy? Firstly, strategy is my primary area of expertise. PropTech is my secondary. I have been a strategic consultant and part of strategy departments of very large construction and IT companies, and worked on numerous international strategic projects. So when we have such complex situations like the one we are in at the moment, the one we were in 2020, and the previous one in 2008-2009, we all need strategy, not just some quick fixes. So this is the book of Richard Rumelt. I can definitely recommend to you, and you can enjoy reading his advices in this book further. But the reason to cite Richard Rumelt is just for one term, 2 words, and this is structural break. Because such situation that we are in are structural breaks. These are situations that lead to breaking of the structure of the sector, the industry we operate. This also leads to becoming certain business models which are affected by this part of where the industry is broken. Certain business models become obsolete. So that is why you need, and everybody with you, to diagnose, to analyze our business model in order to detect whether it will be affected by the structural break. It is not bad news to have a structural break, vice versa. It is good news because we may have a system break. This is far more serious and devastating for whole countries, not for whole industries, because in system break, you have the breaking of huge amount of all industries all at once, which leads really to chaos and to to whole peoples of becoming very poor. And yes, certain countries might take advantage of other countries and so on. So structural break is the good news. It is something that could be navigated and managed. So next, and as a final question that I will pay attention to in this presentation is just to see when structural breaks occur and when they stay with us. So let's go on and see some trends. What we have observed since 2020, which obviously stays with us, is that commercial real estate, there are definitely some trends there, which are long-term. This is an article we have published on our website, proptechbulgaria.eu. You can see there with those stats. Why we see this? This is based on a lot of conversations with property developers that we have had, and what we have analyzed is very interesting when it concerns PropTech. Here you see Europe, the number of PropTechs in Europe, the number of PropTechs in United Arab Emirates and the Gulf region. And we have, because we were interested in knowing what is the situation, particularly in Bulgaria, as part of Europe. That's why we have separated Bulgaria. And when you see that, for example, this is just normal, this is a rule of thumb to have huge numbers of residential PropTechs in each country. This is something that will stay with us, and it's just completely normal. But you see how few are the PropTechs dedicated completely only to commercial. And when it comes to mixed use assets and mixed use PropTechs, that is PropTechs that serve mixed use assets, you see how in the United Arab Emirates and the Gulf region, you have a huge number of their PropTechs dedicated to mixed use. And we regularly perceive mixed use as commercial plus residential. But what we observe is that mixed use since 2020 is no longer only commercial plus residential, but also plus retail. So that's why we also saw which are the PropTechs that serve all three asset classes all at once. And you again see that the number of such PropTechs in the United Arab Emirates and Gulf region, 7% serve all three. In Bulgaria, we have nearly 5%, which is very good percent as well. But when we talk about general in Europe, the percent is lower than 1%. So we perceive this as a new trend that definitely is on its way. And as already mentioned, some property developers which operate internationally definitely focus on commercial plus residential plus retail. We also see this in stepping in some European countries, as the UK, in a report by Colliers for the first half of 2022. We see, as it reads, against the backdrop of an overall slowdown in the UK market, large deals in cities such as London, Birmingham, and Glasgow were concluded in the second quarter as developers focused on mixed-use developments, which include both residential and retail. So exactly what I have just shared with you. Investments are focused on mixing assets, residential and retail, and adding commercial will add additional layer of competitiveness. So this is one trend that we definitely see that it will stay with us. Next, very interesting. This article is in Bulgarian, but I have translated the text for you. This is one of the largest property developers in Central Southeast Europe, GTC, regarding their two large buildings, commercial buildings in Sofia. GTC, one of the leading real estate companies in Central and Eastern Europe, has announced that from September 2022, both buildings of Advanced Business Center in Sofia will be powered by green energy. And this is the interesting part. The developer has been officially certified by LS2 Hold Trade to use 4,000 megawatts of electricity from 100% renewable sources. This is something that we haven't observed so far, and I'm sure that it will become more and more common to have the property developers to deal with a completely different area of activities, and this is to participate on the energy market as a separate player, and not to be certified only according to green building certificates like BREEAM or LEED or any other, but also to be certified on the energy market. This is definitely a trend which to me will stay with us, just due to the fact that such green energy specifics and parameters are become mandatory for property developers, and since they are mandatory compulsory by legislation, definitely they are meant to stay with us. Another trend that we see, which gains high speed, is the spike in co-working spaces. Just because we monthly we track the development of different asset classes in 6 of the Central Southeast Europe countries: Poland, Czechia, Slovakia, Bulgaria, Hungary, and Romania. We know that definitely in many of these countries, the co-working spaces are completely full. There's demand for new co-working spaces, and they're being built. For example, such property developers like GTC, they also include co-working spaces, despite the fact that this is not their area of expertise. They conclude deals with international co-working spaces operators so that they can provide this more short-term, more flexible form of office renting within their Class A buildings. All these buildings that you see are Class A. Okay, another trend that is very, very interesting, and this is that Lindt launches its first 3D virtual online shop. And it's interesting for many reasons. This is how it looks. You can see it on the links mentioned here below. Okay, so we have this trend of combining physical and digital in retail. It definitely stays with us, this digital experience. The 360-degree stores, VR, AR, the omni-channel, the retail. And what is interesting, this is why I included this trend here, is that we observe this in retail and we consider it very, very, how to say, common and normal at the moment. But we see the same when we talk about real estate agencies, exactly the same. So what we observe in the sector of real estate agencies is combining exactly the same digital experience with VR, AR, 360-degree stores, and with omni-channel communication with clients, which is very, how to say, unexpected to me, to have this spillover of some trends that occur in retail and to have them in a completely different sector of real estate, and this is the real estate agencies. That's why I included this trend here for you. So when we talk about visualization PropTechs, which are namely the ones with VR, AR, 360-degree stores, we see that there are not that many. These numbers are calculated as of 7 months ago. Now we have 58 more. That is, the number is about 200. Nevertheless, I included these stats for you just to showcase one very important thing. And this is the fact that visualization PropTechs are being generated by only 5 European countries. These are France, UK, Spain, Bulgaria, and Finland. So despite that 200, not all countries have such visualization PropTechs. And that is why it is Denmark, Greece, Latvia, Portugal, Slovenia have no such solutions of their own origin. So definitely such countries could take advantage in order, if they want really, to also take advantage of the trend that is going on both in retail and when we talk about the real estate agencies sector. One more trend, which is very steady through time, even before 2020 and to 2009, this is that social media comes into the traditional industries. So this is an example how YouTube will introduce live stream shopping space. Snapshot introduces AR shopping experience. But if you have been into the big tech giants trends, you will see that this is a trend that is here for at least 20 years ago. So Facebook, Microsoft, all of these tech giants, they want to come into the real estate and into PropTech as well. Particularly Microsoft really has very interesting plans there, but I'm just outlining some trends, not going deep into what they're about. So another trend that we observe, this is the trend of nearshoring. Just a minute, it is not visible here. Maybe like this. Okay, why it is important? Just a minute. Yeah, let us focus on this graph first. We observe, and this is also a trend that comes long before 2020. This is the moving of industrial facilities and creating logistic centers in Central Southeast European countries. So you see here how there's a huge, always a very significant increases in industrial, in retail, and in office asset classes. This is about Poland, Czechia, Slovakia, Hungary, and Romania, but the same is completely valid also for Bulgaria. You hear that you see here that there is a 30% year-over-year increase compared to 2022 to 2021. And this trend was just fostered and speeded up by the COVID crisis, since it turned out to be much more difficult to import and to manufacture in China. So that's why Western European companies moved their facilities, or part of them at least, to Central Southeast Europe, because it's completely more reliable and lower risk. So just a second. Yes, this is proven also by this graph. You see, this is the general percentages of investment in the region. You see 12% are invested by Austria, you have by the USA, by Scandinavia, Belgium, West EU, UK, and of course in Czechia you have a considerable number of investment by domestic investors, in Hungary as well, but in the other countries definitely the foreign investments, direct investments are higher. So just some stats that prove the trends. You see the industrial asset class in Czechia. You see the increase of warehouse costs. These are the stats by September 2022. You have globally 8.4% increase in warehouse costs, 7.7% in on European level, and 35.8% increase in warehouse costs in Czechia because of the spike in demand. And you will see that the vacancy rate in Q2 2022 in Czechia is just 1.4%. So huge spike in demand for housing, for logistic spaces, for manufacturing industrial areas in our region. Retail asset class, I have included this graph for about the retail asset class just to showcase that you have, as a result of the COVID crisis, you have a shift in and a spike in building retail parks. You see that yes, 67% are still shopping centers, but 31% are retail parks. So definitely this is as a result from the COVID crisis, this spike in demand, and in building retail parks predominantly over shopping centers. So another graph for Romania about the industrial asset class in Romania. This is again proving the same, that there is a very high demand for retail and e-commerce asset industrial spaces, 28%, and 11% demand by logistic and distribution. So as you see, the SE countries are becoming to be logistic hubs for certain regions. And just for example, as the Netherlands is a country, is also logistic hubs, the hub for other regions, and also retail and e-commerce on their increase. So this is the interesting question: when does a structural break occur, and when does it stay with us? Because obviously there are trends that simply stay while only the crisis is there, and if the crisis is gone, then these trends just disappear. But the interesting question is, when does a structural break occur and when it stays? Just to know about the current situation, which trends will stay and which will be gone. So I will just go very, very quickly from the beginning of the presentation. Here, when I talked about you with you about these trends, we see that there are trends that spill over from completely different continents or geographic regions, and they spread to other regions. Just like the trends that have been here for many years in the United Arab Emirates in the Gulf region, they spill over and spread over Europe. So next, when we talked about Lint and its 3D virtual online shop, this is another very interesting spillover of trends, and this is between sectors within real estate. And as I mentioned, we observe trends that are considered normal in retail, and they turned out to be also the norm in real estate agencies, something that I personally didn't expect at all. When we talked about social media, definitely here we can say that real estate and real estate solutions and PropTech solutions can have interesting competitors. All of a sudden, it may turn out that your competitors are not PropTechs, but social media. So it is very interesting also to observe this. And when I talked about nearshoring, I wanted to focus your attention to the fact that no matter that there are global trends, always they can vary from country to country. And there's no one country similar to another. And the trends can also be very national. Okay, so coming to the last question, when I thought about it yesterday, when finally completing the presentation, I reached to the conclusion that a structural break stays. It occurs under economic or political turbulences. Definitely, this is the case. But it stays, and the structural breaks stays with us. If in at least 3 cases, you may add more if you would like. If the trend that has occurred as a result of the structural break proves to be easier for the consumers. If something which is newly introduced proves to facilitate and to make life easier of the consumers, then it will definitely stay. If it is easier to do something, it will stay. Next, if it is compulsory. It is if the governments make it mandatory for customers, for players on the real estate market it is inevitable that it will stay, evidently, at least for a medium, if not long term. And of course, the next case when such a trend may stay with us is if it is cheaper. Everybody would like to maximize his or her profits, so always looking for a cheaper version. This is why, for example, we observe this nearshoring situation and moving business from China to the SE countries. So, in case you would like to know more, we glad that you contact me on these details, and I'm open for your questions if you have some.
Hello, hello.
Hi.
Thank you very much. So what is for you the biggest trend you look out for?
I definitely cannot say which is the biggest.
What do you like the most?
I have outlined these trends just to showcase that their things are really visible with the plain eye, and we need to just pay attention more closely. Maybe a trend that definitely is an overarching trend is that if, for example, structural breaks, such a big crisis, just like we're experiencing one at the moment, or COVID, or the financial crisis in 2008. If such crisis in the 19th century has been with an interval of 50 to 70 years, in the 20th century, that is just 100 and less years ago, they begin to occur with an interval of 40 years. By the end of 20th century, they were with an interval of 20 years. We observed that, for example, the interval between the financial crisis in 2008-9 and the coronavirus crisis was just 10 years. And now when we have the coronavirus, and now when we have the next crisis, economic crisis that we're experiencing, we just don't have an interval.
Yeah.
They just overlap. We were done with the coronavirus crisis, and we are in another crisis.
Yep. Well, that's interesting. Well, hopefully those crises will also stay away a little bit, so we can create some business.
Yes.
Don't go from crisis to crisis.
Exactly.
Well, thank you very much, Sylvia.
Yeah.
Enjoy your day there in Bulgaria, and hope to speak to you soon.
Yeah, thank you. Bye.
Thank
Have
you.
a good
Bye-bye.
day. Bye. Bye.